Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Welcome to a brand new episode of Drop the Magic Mike on the Highbury Squad. I am the aforementioned Magic Mike. This is our very first show. Each show we're going to have a different one of my mates on the show with me. We're going to spend a few minutes talking about 5 highly important Magic Mike drops. This is the mic that will be dropped. The topics are insightful. They're very technical. They're very tactical. All right, who am I kidding? They're going to be ridiculous, barely related to football enough to make sense, fun, and cover the lighter side of football. And who could I have as my first guest to cover the lighter side of football better than a man whose name has even more spellings than Hanukkah? And here you can see that's a lot of damn spellings. It could be pronounced as Owen, Ian, Ewan, EOIN, Eeyore, Rufus. I mean, take your pick. He's one of my co-hosts from the Gooners Podcast, big supporter of Gooners versus Cancer. Welcome to the duck-breaking episode of Drop the Magic Mike, Mr. Owen Young III, Esquire.
I'm absolutely honoured. First of all, might I say that if there's not one thing that I do enough of in my spare time is spend time on the internet with you, in conversation with you. So I'm absolutely honoured to be doing that once more.
Hey, you know, what's another 20 to 30 minutes with with Owen, I tell my family, and they're like, well, we haven't seen you for weeks. So you can go just about anywhere, in the pod world, in the pod universe, the podiverse, to get tactical analysis of Arsenal games, our club, from, mostly from people who actually know what they're talking about. We prefer you go to the Highbury Squad or Gooners Podcast, but look, you don't need another 20-minute show from us. So we're bringing you the content you've been yearning for, begging for. And now let's get this thing started. So we have 5 topics today. Number 1. Who are your 5? And we may cut this to 3, actually. Most hated Spurs players of all time. This is a long, all time is a lengthy period of time, as you may know. So we'll start with you, Owen, and we'll go one by one. Who is one of your 5, if not the most 5, or 3, or 4 most hated Spurs players of all time?
Don't worry, it was very, very easy to come up with a list of 5 players from the Spuds.
We can do 5 if we have it.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Do you want to know what? The first thing I'll say before we crack into this list is that I was actually trying to think of players from the past that aggravated me, and the truth is, and take this as a joke as much as you want, but Spurs have only really become relevant in the past 5 years. So it was very difficult to actually look back and think of any that actually really annoyed me because, as I mentioned, they just weren't that relevant. But look, I'll throw this one out there for obvious reasons, and I'm sure you'll maybe agree with this one, Mike, is Emmanuel Adebayor is probably one of the first ones that spring to mind. Obviously, given the history, given his reaction after scoring against us, I think that he's somebody who absolutely has to make the list.
Yeah, but Adebayor was definitely on my list. He was honorable mention when I was doing 3, so he's my number 4. I think the worst reaction against us, he was actually a City player at the time. I mean, he played for City, Spurs. I mean, I'm surprised you never played for for every other team that we've ever come against. But Real Madrid really didn't bother me that much, although it made 0 sense whatsoever. But yeah, Adebayor, loved him when he was here, and yet he still became one of my top 5 all-time Spurs hated players. So nice one with Adebayor. I'm going to go with a fairly easy one and a fairly recent one, Eric Lamela. Lamela, of all of the players that they replaced Gareth Bale with, one probably successful player in Christian Eriksen and a bunch of absolute tools. Eric Lamela really didn't become relevant, didn't really play for them very much in the first couple of seasons. But my friend Tom Rosenhammer from Richmond, Virginia, used to tell me that he has the most punchable face in football. And I was like, that's an interesting way of putting it. And then as he started to become good, and, of course, he scored that wonder goal against us in a game they lost. I started seeing more and more comments on Twitter and social media about how punchable his face is. I didn't realize this is a thing. But yeah, I mean, that guy just looks and acts like complete nonsense. And, I would say I'm glad he's not on Spurs anymore, but he really, other than one pretty goal, never really did that much to hurt us anyway.
Absolutely, yeah. He was one of the top names on my list. I think that he embodies everything that's wrong with a modern day footballer, doesn't he? And he embodies everything that's so hateable about Spurs. He's got the attitude and the aura of Andre Pirlo. That's the way he carries himself. When really his playing ability is more like that of Jason Punchin. It's absolutely shocking. Not only that, I think.
But he never did the master move that Jason Punchin did, which was running off the pitch to have a seat for a few minutes, and then come back onto the pitch while the crowd is making fun of you. That's where I became a huge fan of Jason Punchin. Mm-hmm. So I'll take him over Lamela any day.
Absolutely, yeah. No, but look, obviously the 2 goals in his Spurs career in particular stand out, and look, as much as I absolutely hate the guy, they're one of them. I think it was in the Europa League, I forget who against, but it was the Rabona from outside the box was arguably the best goal I've ever seen. But yeah, in terms of his career, an absolute flop, and somebody who obviously holds himself in much higher standard than he should be.
Yeah, I mean, I think he ended up costing 35 million of the money they made from Bale, and as an Arsenal, supporter podcast, we can clearly say that Arsenal would never spend 35 million on a player who just wasn't good enough for the Premier League, and we certainly wouldn't do it twice in a couple of years. So, that aside, all right. So, who else do you have? Who's in your top?
One that sneaks into my list, and I'm not sure whether this would be on everybody's sort of top 5 list. And look, there's going to be this is in no particular order, by the way. I'm just going to throw them out. Right. I'm probably saving the best for last, but the next one I'll throw out there is Heung-min Son. And whilst he seems respectful, seems innocent, pleads his innocence at any given opportunity. That's one of the reasons I absolutely hate the guy, because by all accounts, if there was one thing that the Amazon Prime documentary gave us a look into during its time in the dressing room, was just how much of a petulant little spoilt child that guy seems to be. I mean, like, everybody knows that when you join for a football team, there's always one of those little ratty players, a little teacher's pet, and Heung-min Son sums that up completely. I hate anybody who has to try to act innocent, and for me, he just embodies, again, a Spurs player embodying everything that's wrong with football. I'm starting to see a bit of a trend here.
Yeah, I mean, look, I combined Heung-min Son and Harry Kane because they both have to be on there, and I didn't want to take up 2 of my 3 spots or even 2 of my 5 spots with that, because they're both basically, I mean, both of them are just beloved worldwide for playing the game the right way.
Well, let's even talk about that, because Harry Kane obviously is one of the ones that have made my list as well. So I'm sure we can both agree that Harry Kane is quite arguably the most hateable Spurs player of all time.
Probably so. Yeah. I mean, unless you, I mean, and it's crazy because when he puts the England shirt on, I root for him, and I know that I lose a lot of credibility and friends, frankly, when I say that and when it happens. But but look, I'm cheering for the shirt. I'm not cheering for the dude, because the dude is an absolutely diabolical.
This is the great thing about being Irish, is I get to hate him while he's in both shirts. It's fantastic.
And thank goodness you almost had to have a tattoo of him. You didn't know that, but I was going to make you put his face on your arm as well.
His face on my face would be worse.
if England had won the World Cup. All right, so we've got the dastardly duo that we knew would be on the list: Eric Lamela. We have Adebayor. Who else is on your list? Because I've got 2 more that I could mention, and then
I've got one more left on my list that I'm not sure whether you're going to have put this on. Jermaine Defoe came up on my list. He is a striker who is absolutely hailed by the Spurs fans, who was blown completely out of proportion during his time there. And look, he was a decent striker, but to be comparing him to the other strikers of that era, you had Wayne Rooney, Carlos Tevez, Robin van Persie, all these players. And I'm sorry, he is a heel biter compared to those guys. He just didn't deserve to be in that company whatsoever. And again, probably a player whose limited ability was suited to the Spurs of that era.
Yeah, I mean, put up some numbers for sure. The guy scored a lot of goals, but they were inconsequential goals. They weren't, Aaron Ramsey in 2 different games scored goals that were more important than any goal that Jermaine Defoe probably ever scored in his entire career. So yeah, I can see that. I didn't have him on my list though. The last person I had on my list, and then I have to give an answer for someone who isn't here today because it's such a good one. This guy, the guy, not Pochettino, and I know he's not a player, but the guy next to Pochettino, whose name I believe is Jesus Perez. Every time they would pan over to Pochettino sitting on the bench during the game, strategizing and being super high key and into the game because he was, of course, the genius of the world. That little rat looking dude next to him, just wanted, again, like Lamella, I just wanted to punch that guy in the face. I had no idea why, but I just couldn't stand him. And maybe it's because I actually begrudgingly wanted to give a little tiny bit of credit to Pochettino, although he's clearly never won anything that didn't include Mbappe and Neymar. But yeah, I mean, that coach guy just needed to get lost. So that's my final 4. The 5th one, and we're going to finish this mic drop off, from my good friend Jason Davies, who came on our show a couple years ago and just went on a riff about this guy. And he wanted me to know how bad he hates Gary Mabbott. Okay, so Gary Mabbott, I mean, I was over there in the late 80s when Gary Lineker played, Gaza, Waddle. It was really hard for me to hate any of those guys. And, Gaza, I just feel more sorry for than hate. I mean, what he's been through. So of a player from that era, Gary Mabbott is definitely that guy. He absolutely, Jason, hated that guy. Mm-hmm. Absolutely hilarious. But I was looking him up on Wikipedia today, and I found something that, look, I don't like to make fun of people whose health is not good unless they're me. But this I just couldn't ignore. So this was from Wikipedia. It says, in 2018, Mabbott had part of his foot eaten by a rat. While on holiday with his daughter in the Kruger National Park in South Africa, Mabbott, who has little feeling in his feet due to diabetic neuropathy, awoke to find a rat had eaten part of his foot and bitten one toe to the bone. He was forced to fly back to the UK for surgery and spent a week in hospital. I mean, maybe I'm just an absolute awful person, but I just find that funny for some reason, because like he didn't wake up to find it eating his foot. He woke up to find that it had eaten his foot. Have you ever had a rat eat your foot or any other part of your body?
I've been in some states myself, but never in that much of a state, to be honest with you. But look, it's only a rat's natural instinct. I'll not criticize the rat because its natural instinct is just to eat garbage. So
yeah, it's not the rat's fault that he found Jason Davies' least favorite Spurs player.
That's one
and
thing.
His leg was just dangling right there in front of him. I mean, so that's our first topic, and with that, we drop the mic. All right, second topic. Number 2. Speaking of things that we hate, we've gotten off to a very negative start to this, even though it's a very happy time for Arsenal.
This is my bread and butter. Keep it coming, man. I hate most things.
Football clubs you hate outside of the top 6. I mean, we don't need to go Chelsea and Spurs and United and City and even Liverpool. It could be any team in the English football pyramid. It could be a Northern Irish team that you pull out of your tuchus. It could be anyone from Europe. So go ahead. What are some teams? There's no limits. Just name a few.
The first one that springs to mind 100%, and for obvious reasons, is Stoke City.
I knew you were going there.
Yeah, absolutely. The Ryan Shawcross tackle on Aaron Ramsey was just absolutely horrific, and that alone would be enough to make me hate them. But not only that, when we look at Burnley of today, Stoke were 10 times worse 10 years ago. They were the rugby team of the Premier League. They literally had no footballing ability. The horrible team to watch. Their supporters were, I don't like blanket stating people, but back then their supporters were even horrible too. I remember them.
That's the one consistent thing that makes me still hate Stoke. I mean, all the top players are not top players, but the top jerks at Stoke are gone. that Tony Poulos character is gone. And it's getting harder to hate Stoke because our podcast nephew Tyrese Campbell is leading the line there as their striker. So look, man, I don't root against Stoke on the scoreboard anymore because I always look to see whether Ty got a goal or played 90, and so it's hard to hate the team. But the one consistent thing that is still there are the supporters. The supporters who cheered or booed Aaron Ramsey, sang songs about how he only has one leg. And fans, I think, can be a very good reason to hate another club. And that's, the fans will never change. So Stoke was at the top of my list as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyone else you got?
Yeah, there's one here, and I'll tread lightly around this one. Due to the circumstances of my upbringing and the nature of the political environment in which I was brought up, I have to put Rangers there. And again, this isn't a hatred thing. It's just simply a tribal thing when it comes to football teams. When you're from Northern Ireland, the likelihood is you either follow Celtic or Rangers. And I just happen to be born on the side that follows Celtic, so the natural hate for Rangers is there. Although I will say that they're a much, much, much more likeable side with Steven Gerrard at the helm.
Have you ever been to an Old Firm derby?
I've not. No, it's definitely on the bucket list. It's extremely difficult to get tickets, but I'm definitely going to have to source them out one day because that's a must see one, I think. Yeah,
that's definitely on my list for sure as well. And I always check the schedule when I'm coming over to see if there happens to be an Old Firm, and this time there's not. But
next time you're coming, we'll get it arranged.
Yeah, I'll plan a trip around it. So Burnley, you mentioned Burnley. They made my list as well. I mean, between Ashley Barnes and Sean Dyche constantly bitching and moaning. I mean, they've become the Premier League version, I think, of Stoke. Although, like you said, in a light way. But if I had to pick another Premier League team, it would be Burnley. I'm going back a little bit. I used to hate Luton Town. Now people would say, like, who even cares about Luton Town? They weren't even in the Football League until a few years ago, but they were top flight team in the late 80s. And of course, we all know that they won a cup that we prefer not to talk about as Arsenal supporters. But, they played on a turf pitch at the time, and it just bothered me. I hated it. They were allowed to do it. They played on the turf pitch. There were a few other teams like Oldham and even, recently non-league teams were, like Sutton played on a 3G pitch or whatever you want to call it. But, and people today may have their own social media related reasons to hate anything that has to do with Luton. But for me, it's more just that pitch and the fact that they, how did they deserve to be in the first division at any point in time?
But one of the teams on my list, I think that this could be a slight surprise because I don't know why, but Arsenal fans have a slight soft spot for this team seemingly, whereas I'm the complete opposite. But Everton Football Club.
I knew you were going to say that. God, I knew you were going to say that as soon as you said soft spot.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Just remember, this is airing on Super Kev's channel.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've slagged off Stoke and I've slagged off Everton. But it's not going to get any better.
Any other family members or you have? I mean, are we going Trabzonspor next? Or
that's it.
We're going to slag off?
But look, I'm sure Kev can understand because although I absolutely idolize the guy and love him, I'm not going to hold back because he wouldn't appreciate it if it did. And the truth is that Everton are the Spurs of Merseyside. They're
I mean, it's hard to argue from a statistical standpoint.
But look, I'll tell you, and this is the reason, because I have quite a soft spot for Liverpool. That is probably the reason I dislike them. But I don't like their attitude when they talk. Like, you always hear this thing. It's very much like ourselves about North London is red. They're talking about Liverpool being blue. It's like, mate, you're complaining about having a manager who has won more trophies than your entire club has in the last 2 decades. It's like, know your role.
Yeah. I don't know. Everton. I've said this to a lot of people when I was in Florida in July for the presumed Arsenal visit that never happened. Everton did come, and they brought a pretty good fan base there, and that fan base was very, very enjoyable to mix with, whereas others are not. So, I do have a soft spot for them, but you clearly do not, and you're just ruthless and diabolical. So. I have a couple on here that, I mean, I don't really hate them, but I mean, Accrington Stanley. I mean, what kind of name is that? Accrington Stanley. I mean, any team with like an old Jewish guy's name as the second part of the name just doesn't, to me, look, make it first or Stanley Accrington I could have dealt with, not Accrington Stanley. And
It
then
sounds even worse when you say it in their accent.
I know Accrington Stanley.
Accrington Stanley? Accrington Stanley? Who are they? Exactly.
That was the worst job of it, but can you do it?
Absolutely not, and I'm not even going to try because you're getting clipped.
Yeah, I am. Tranmere. No problem with Tranmere Rovers until about 3 years ago when they were in the promotion playoffs of whatever lower league that they're in, and it came to light that they're Mike Dean's childhood and favorite team, and he was in the crowd making a spectacle of himself, going absolutely nuts, kind of like he does when he's actually refereeing a game. Mm-hmm. So as soon as I found that out, I started hating Tranmere Rovers. Mm-hmm. I don't go out of my way to to find out how their results are, but I don't need to see them coming up in any divisions.
Yeah, I've got one more in my list, but I'm going to throw one randomly out there. Okay, just I don't know. This is going to annoy you. I'm going to say Sutton United. All right, simply.
Of course, it's going to annoy me. Why would you say that?
Because I watched your podcast with the lovely gentleman from who writes the blogs for Sutton United, and I was listening to him describe name the goalkeeper for me, Wayne Shaw, about how Wayne Shaw was received after his famous pie eating incident against Arsenal, and it seemingly was quite consistent with what everybody at the club was feeling, that he was this embarrassment. It's like, but I'm sorry, if it wasn't for Wayne Shaw eating that pie, everyone would have forgotten the name Sutton United. He gave you your biggest advertisement ever, the biggest publicity stunt that could have been possibly done, and it doesn't matter why your name's remembered, it's just that it's remembered, and people like me wouldn't have a clue who Sutton United is if it wasn't for people like Wayne Shaw. I support that pie-eating legend. What a guy.
Well, he is. I love the guy as well. I've had the honor of eating a pie and having a pint with the guy. But I could kind of understand this point of view. But no, look, you say what you say. You're taking all your best friends, and you're slagging off the things that are most important to them right now. So
it is. Yeah, that's
so way to go. Thanks. Got to add the New York Red Bull, little MLS team out of New York City that this is kind of, when you say support your local club, our local club is DC United, pretty woeful of late in recent years, formerly one of the top clubs in the MLS, like right when it formed, but there was an instant rivalry between DC and New York, as there often is. New York Red Bulls, previously the New York Metro Stars, absolute shite. It became very hard to root against them for a number of years because of a certain Thierry Henry. But as soon as he left and Bradley Wright Phillips was their talisman, and it went back to the old, I can't stand the Red Bull. So the Red Bull, New York Red Bull's probably, I like Red Bull. I just don't like the New York Red Bulls.
There's another bridge burnt with Ian Wright.
Yeah, I know. Well, but he doesn't come on the podcast with us yet. I guess now he never will. Your favorite team, though, I've heard, is Young Boys for obvious reasons, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's...
I've got one more, an honourable mention. I'll not dive into this too much, okay? Newcastle United. I don't know why, man. It's just, they're fans. I know they're good fans, and I know but it's just like, just shut up already, okay? We know he's had Alan Shearer. We know that he's were decent before, but they go on like they're a top 4 team and they deserve to be up there. It's just like, shut up.
And that is the second mic drop. All right, the third mic drop.
Number 3.
Best types of goal celebrations. We're going, and I don't mean like a particular goal celebration, like what Wayne Rooney did this particular time or what Bukayo Saka did. I'm talking about, like, there's a few different categories of goal celebrations. So I think we have to start off with the one that made its triumphant return to the Emirates yesterday, the knee slide. Mm-hmm. Specifically the knee slide with divot. There's knee slides without divot and there's knee slides with divot. But the knee slide, I mean, there's so many different ways of there we go. You just ripped it off your wall and put it in front of you. It's amazing. But the knee slide just it's the best because you can judge it in so many different ways. You can judge it based on like how straight it was. You can judge it based on how long it was.
Unless you're Romelu,
dangerous territory here.
Yeah, unless you're Romelu Lukaku and you fall flat in your face.
Yeah, I mean, and there are knee slides that have gone horribly wrong, but I like the ones where there's multiple people sliding next to each other. So we just saw a great one yesterday. So I mean, is the knee slide one of your favorites, or are you kind of ambivalent about it?
No, it is because obviously that classic Thierry Henry, and it was absolutely brilliant to see Aubameyang doing that yesterday. But I've never been a knee slider myself, and I tell you why. Because when I was about 13, we were playing a Sunday League football match, and one of the boys in the opposition's team scored, and he ran and he did the knee slide, but he slid over a piece of broken glass and cut himself from the tip of the knee down to the top of his ankle, just absolutely wide open. And whilst it was great because he was a fantastic player and he couldn't carry on in the match, it was horrific. So I says, well, that's what you get for.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could probably count on the fact that that there's not going to be a piece of glass on the pitch at Emirates, but you never know. Now, when you get divots, 3 of them, in fact, yesterday from Aubameyang, do you think the groundskeeper gets the hump over those things? That like he's like, now I got to go. I mean, that pitch is pristine, and they're going and basically digging long divots in it. I have a feeling that because of what causes the knee slide, which is an Arsenal goal, everyone's probably okay with it. But you're a man of the people. You're a man who loves to just get in there and work with his hands on the earth. And would all your hard work to make a pristine pitch thrown down the tubes by a certain Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, would you have mixed feelings about that at least?
I can guarantee you that our groundsman will be annoyed at that 100%, because you only have to look. There's a reason that place is called the carpet. It's because there's so much attention to detail and such pristine effort goes into making that playing surface as perfect as it is. For a nonsense knee slide like that, I'm sure he looks and thinks, why the hell couldn't Aubameyang have just done the Alan Shearer and put his hand up and run?
Or his normal flip. Humble. I mean, like he didn't even do that. So
here's one actually, because Alex Ferguson used to absolutely rip Nani apart. So he did, because not his babysitter, like the football player.
He used to rip his nanny apart. He wasn't such a great guy off the football pitch.
but apparently, because the flips through his celebrations, he was afraid of him getting injured all the time. So it's funny that nobody has ever really pulled Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang up on that, or maybe that is the reason now why he has stopped it. Maybe he's been requested to stop that. So some questions around this picture. But
yeah, I mean, I've always been worried that he was going to hurt himself doing that, and and if they if they let him do it for 2 years and 2 Ballon d'Or, I mean not Ballon d'Or, 2 Golden Boot or like near Golden Boots or Golden Boots, don't fix what's not broken, I suppose. Mm-hmm. But yeah, here's and you might have to unmute yourself because I think it automatically mutes when I put the video up. But here's the Auba slide. I think we can actually figure out the true situation about why there's three tracks here. So here we see him getting into it. In a moment, you'll see. Now, the knees are the 2 outside ones. The boot doesn't make an outside one, except when he goes sideways, the boot is the center one. So that your premise of what the center one was, I think we can put to rest now and see that in fact it was his left boot. Would you like to take the opposing view on that, or are we just going to let that lie? because this is someone else's podcast.
This is somebody else's podcast. It's rocky territory. All I'm saying is, if that was his boot, the groundsman should be thankful, because the other option may have been more devastating to the surface of the Emirates.
Okay. All right. So, any other kinds of goal celebrations that you like, particularly, like whether iconic or just?
Well, look, there's 2 I'll mention. One is a group of celebrations, and one is one celebration in particular. And as painful as this is going to be for me to admit this, one is from an ex-Spurs player. But bear in mind, I was young and stupid when this celebration meant so much to me. But it was in 2002 when Ireland the Republic of Ireland went on a run in the World Cup, eventually being knocked out by Spain on penalties in the quarterfinals, I think. And it was Robbie Keane's celebration. He used to run and he did a roll and he got up and did like an archer shooting off the bow celebration. And I remember for at least a year after that, every single weekend in amateur football, every single clown was doing that celebration. But
and you were obviously included in that, right?
100%, yeah, man. Yeah, no, but it was massive in terms of my childhood. That's the biggest. Like kids today have the Ronaldo shoe celebration. We had the Robbie Keane roll.
I do hate that.
I absolutely despise that as well.
Yeah,
but
that's a pretty good one.
The group that I'm going to throw up, and look, there's a few we could dissect here, I'm sure, but I love anything with humor and a hint of like rebelliousness through it. Is that rebelliousness? That is a word, yeah. Anything defiant that is funny, I like. The one that stands out in my mind, for example, is I think it was Wolves when Jimmy Bullard did the manager telling him off after the previous week. They all got spoken to like children on the pitch at half time. Another one was when Luis Suarez did the fake dive in front of David Moyes, which was fantastic. And of course, the legendary one of Robbie Fowler sniffing the goal line. After some of them, anything creative and funny, I absolutely adore. Is there any that stand out for you?
Yeah, along those lines, actually, and you mentioned him earlier in the podcast, and I didn't even, and it just made me think of this. Jason Punchin, the game after he notoriously went in to take a dump during the game and was serenaded by the fans. The next game, he scores a goal, goes over to the corner flag and wipes his arse with it, which I mean. Absolutely brilliant in the moment. Like he's not trying to shy away from the embarrassment of what had happened. So I love that one. I'm also kind of a fan of the baby celebration. Usually players do this when like they just become a father or something like that. I like it because I can now identify with the player more about our looks and our physique when he has.
Do you think that the Premier League and English football in general, European football in general, do you think that we're missing a trick with some of these celebrations? Because we see video highlights of maybe like Eastern European leagues or leagues from the Middle East, and some of these mass prearranged choreographed celebrations, and they look absolutely fantastic. You think of some of the ones like the fishing photo ones. Is that something that you would like to see Arsenal do? Some stuff like that, or do you think it's get your football sorted and then worry about stuff like that, lads?
Look, I'm all about the goofiness, man. I mean, that American football, they went and they abolished all that stuff for years, and then they realized that they had just turned it into the no fun league, and so they brought it back with certain rules and stuff. We actually saw a little bit yesterday with Partey, and I mean, we saw like a 3-person kind of coordinated dance and stuff. I love that stuff. I mean, if you can't celebrate a goal in the manner of which you desire, then don't celebrate it at all. My favorite one, though, and I only ever saw really one person doing this, but my favorite goal celebration is this one. Where is he here? Here we go. Batcafemi Gomis, formerly Swansea. I think he played in France as well. That whatever that is that he's doing, like the reptile walk. I mean, he scored against us once in a game, and I was almost not upset because I knew that I was going to be seeing that dance. I mean, almost not upset. And apparently there's a clip, which I couldn't show because it's not really from a good angle, where he did that in front of some ball boy, and the ball boy looks up and gets freaked out and starts running away like he thought he was getting ready to get eaten or attacked or something like that. But that's probably my favorite one of all. Do you have any more that are on your list?
No, do you want to know what whilst I love, I'm an extremist. I love either end of the scale, and something I love as well is, not that he scores a big pile anymore, but like Mario Balotelli when he used to score and didn't really celebrate. And I remember Thierry Henry went through a stage of that where he was just that prolific that he was just bored of celebrating, and he used to just stand and stare into the stands or whatever.
You didn't like when he pulled his shirt up and it said, "Why always me?" And I was about to pull my shirt up to demonstrate, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I'll not do that either. Me and you are like them. You know, the Russian dolls that go inside,
the nesting dolls.
Yeah, and I'm like the smaller version of you.
Yeah.
So I'll not do that either.
Much smaller. And the celebration that I absolutely hate that happened to us was Griezmann doing the loser night, the loser dance from Fortnite when he pretty much knocked us out of the. I mean, I thought that was funny if it wasn't happening to us, but the loser dance from Fortnite. I think while Mesut Ozil was on the pitch, he probably got really excited that someone was doing a Fortnite dance, but no, that wasn't having that one, not at all.
What about celebrating to the opposition fans? How do you feel about that? Because one that stands out for me as well is Danny Welbeck scoring against United for us and celebrating. I absolutely loved it. Now I hate when it's done to us, but
you hate when it's done to us, but we should stop the team from doing that to us. That should, that's part of the penalty and if you're willing to take your life into your own hands by doing that, and your safety into your own hands and inciting a riot, then by all means it should be encouraged. That's what I think. So absolutely. Goal celebrations, dropping the mic. This should be an easy one. And the next topic is
number 4.
Your absolute favorite of 6 versions of Bird Leno. Now, to give a little bit of background, about 9 months ago, I noticed that Owen is incapable of saying the word burned. And so apparently our newly minted cup-only goalkeeper's name became
Bird Leno.
Bird Leno. And so, of course, I went directly to our Photoshop maestro, Sebi, who you can also catch on Not Another Arsenal podcast. And he mocked up a couple different options for Bird Leno. And we're just going to go through this right now in case you haven't seen them. Bird number 1, of course, from Sesame Street. Everybody loves Big Bird. And this is Big Bird Leno. Bird number 2, would this be an ostrich?
An emu?
Or an emu. Yeah, one or the maybe an emu, but that's, I mean, if you're listening to this instead of watching it, you're missing out. The third Bird Leno is I believe Tweety Bird from the old comic books. Then we have, this is Scrooge McDuck. It's not Donald Duck. But it looks like the evil, like the Scrooge McDuck. So it's either Donald Duck angry or Scrooge McDuck. The fifth one we have Daffy Duck. And then the final one, I have no clue who this is. This is from some kids movie, I think, or some anime.
That's from I'm an expert in this department, as I watch that movie at least twice a day for the past year, and that is the little chicken from Moana.
Oh, from Moana. Okay, nice. I that was not in the era where I was watching kids movies. Leave that there. So of those 6. I don't know. We've talked about them a lot. We've showed them, but I don't know that we've ever talked about who your favorite Bird Leno is, other than the one who doesn't play in important games for Arsenal anymore.
Aaron Ramsdale is probably my favorite. No, I'd say off the epic. Look, I think with the body shape is key here because proportions matter. And for me, Sabi has done a fantastic job at creating Big Bird Leno. So I think that Big Bird Leno is my favorite. There's something about the arm. There's a little bit of a bingo wing going on at the bottom there, where obviously Leno is skipping arm day.
Yeah, and you have to admit, like just the workmanship of this, to where there's no neck that isn't yellow. There's not even like a sliver of non-yellow neck. That is pretty good. I actually never even noticed how perfect he got the neck there. I got to go with this one though, and a squatty and a goonie and whatever you want to call Daniel Robert absolutely loves these. He asks for them every show, and I've got the same favorite one as he does, which is the emu. For some reason, he just looks in this picture that emu's face just looks like what am I doing here? Or like when
the same thing like Leno looks like during every match.
Well, when Leno, I mean, look, Leno's not a bad goalkeeper. I'm a big supporter of him. He's a good shot stopper, but yeah, he does get a little lost sometimes. This is him probably right after he's rolled the ball out to Bellerin and he's explaining, which direction he's supposed to be going, and then it all just ends up, collapsing on him and the ball goes in his own net. So. So we've got 2 different favorite Bird Lenos. Squatties, feel free to vote on your favorite Bird Leno, and maybe we'll feature him more in the next podcast. So that is mic drop number 4, and the 5th,
number 5.
What is up with the ladder climbing dance? Now I had to explain this one to you, and I'm surprised because you're from the British Isles, can we say? I mean, I know the UK and England and Britain, they're all slightly different, but so you're from the UK.
Not by choice, but yes.
Okay. So ever since I moved to England and first started watching football, I saw something that I just never seen in America before, and I've never seen in America since, which is basically a celebration or just an expression of happiness that ends up looking like this. Okay. And I have to say, these two people are doing it a little bit differently. We got one who's moving the hips, but not really the arms. And then we've got one who's just moving the arms, which is my favorite version of it.
Mm-hmm. That's the correct version.
Okay, so now you know what I'm talking about, and you even know what's proper and what's not proper. So explain to me why this is a thing.
So this is something that stems back from I was actually looking this up, the 16 to 1700s, and no, seriously, and essentially what it is, it's a celebration of harvest. So it's a milking the cow dance, it's called, and essentially it's celebrating.
Well, I did not actually expect to learn something from this question. I always thought it was the ladder climbing, because you'll see it like this, you'll see it like this with the hands forward, you'll see it with varying levels of width, but it's about milking cows basically. So the important part is this.
No, it's absolutely not about milking cows, and this is one reason why I said not by choice part of the British Isles, because there's a big bit of sea that separates me from all them English people over there who absolutely love this dance for reasons I don't know, and I am so glad I'm not a part of that absolute nonsense.
And you don't really see it anywhere other than England, although you will see it like when Barcelona would be collecting its trophies and stuff on the you'd see this version of it, which is more kind of like the full arm extension with just the slightest of arm curls, not
minor details. If you're in English, it's this. In Spanish, it's this.
Yep. Yeah. And then for some reason, like the climbing the ladder part, like where is the cow located that you're doing this? Like, are you standing up under the cow? Is that like
this is like a Jane Fonda's like workout video, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I think that's in. My wife does one of those videos from Jillian Michaels, and I'm pretty sure that I come downstairs and see her doing that, and I'm like, who scored? So that's what's up with the ladder climbing dance. I've been trying to get to the bottom of that for years, and I honestly, after telling me this, I don't know if you're taking the piss or if you actually looked that up and that's where it's coming from.
No, I didn't. I just made that up. Like,
I didn't figure this much. All right, so yes, that is the first episode of Drop the Magic Mike. We've made it through episode 10, and we'll be back soon with another episode, a brand new guest, and 5 new Magic Mike drops for you. Until then, thank you, Owen, for joining us. This has been Magic Mike from the Gooners Podcast on behalf of the Highbury Squad. Come on, you Gooners.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.